This conference will now be recorded.
Are we good? I'd like to bring to order the meeting of the Township of Hamilton Township Committee, Monday, November 9th, 2020. Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by publication in the Press of Atlantic City and the Atlantic County Record on January the 15th, 2020. Adequate notice of in-person attendance and live streaming with call-in capability was provided by publication in the Press of Atlantic City and the Star Ledger on September the 19th, 2020. Mr. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Gishard? Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mr. Vitale?
Here.
Mayor Schenker?
Here. We have a moment of silence for private reflection, please. Thank you. All right. Additions, deletions, and late agenda items to be considered for action tonight. We have 4 items. Actually, more than that. 7J, resolution designating block 1317 lots 13.01, 13.02, 15, 16, 17.01, 17.02, 17.03, and 18, and block 1323 lots 2 and 3 within the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic as non-condemnation redevelopment area as recommended by the Township of Hamilton Planning Board. Arch, is this one the development? This was the one that's the study and the additional. Okay. All right. 7K, resolution designated block 1133, lots 1 and 2, block 1134, lots 1, 3, 01, 3.02, 3.03, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 within the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic as a non-condemnation redevelopment area as recommended by the Township of Hamilton Planning Board. So this one's the one that's the development. Okay, just so we're clear. 7L, resolution amending and supplementing resolution 2020-0268, declaring Donald G. Targan and Associates, PA, in default of their obligations to the Township of Hamilton regarding the project known as Pine Creek Major Subdivision, block 1101, lots 2.02 and 4.15. 7M, resolution granting permission to Glass Entertainment Group, LLC, and MN's Show, LLC, to film in and about Mays Landing for November 16th to 20th, 2020. Also, there'll be an executive session, 2 things on the agenda: property acquisition and personal hiring of CFO. Mitty, what's your pleasure?
Move to accept.
A motion to accept. Is there any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. We move on to early public comment on the agenda items, excluding items listed for public hearings. Is there anyone? Yep. Anyone on the call? You have to unmute yourself. All right, thank you. So we'll move on. We need a motion to close early public comment.
Move to close.
Second.
A motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 3, discussions, formal actions may be taken. A, resolution authorizing application for local government emergency fund grant.
Mr. Mayor, this is the CARES Act funding
Right.
from the federal government through to the state. We need to make application to DCA for these funds, $377,477 for reimbursement from COVID expenses that we've incurred since the beginning of the pandemic. The application has been completed and with one of the final phases is the approval of the resolution by the committee.
Okay.
I'll move 3A.
A motion and a second. Do we have any questions?
I have a question. Does that actually cover costs?
There's some extra costs that it really doesn't cover that, but they had a formula at the state of how much they were going to break down, which you could apply for. We maximized our application dollar amount, so we're trying to get back. I know some towns have not reached that. If there is extra funding left over, just like Sandy, they'll do a second round of some type of funding for COVID. Understanding that this is, we're not closing, all this is the initial application. As of December 10th, we will submit additional documentation. So if we have any additional expenses, we can try to look at them. But this has just been a very intensive. I want to thank Stacy Wellington and Lieutenant Pritchka, who have been all over this and done an exceptional job of putting this application together.
Very good. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to move item 3A.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. B, termination of lease agreement with Mizpah Fire Company effective December 31st, 2020.
Mr. Mayor, this is basically since they have ceased to operate and we have not been able to really identify a true board of directors for that organization and who controls the funding. It's legal recommendation and from recommendation and looking at everything that we cease the leasing of the building. And if they want to reorganize down the road or do something like that, and then they can gather everything together to get it together, we can reconsider leasing the building for that. But at this point, to spend any more tax dollars on it is an absolute waste of money.
Okay.
I'll move 3B.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Public hearing, adoption of ordinances. Ordinance 1932-2020, the ordinance of Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic to regulate short-term rentals of residential properties. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public like to speak? Anyone on the call like to speak? Please unmute yourself and identify yourself.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. State your name.
Hi. My name is Mary Thompson. I'm on Gravelly Run Road. I'm actually around the block from a house that is now starting to become an Airbnb, and it's only been, I guess, only a month now. But every weekend, me and a few of my neighbors have had to call the police because of the loud noise.
Now, this ordinance is in an effort to stop that.
Correct. So I'm here to support it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, thank you very much. Is there anybody else on the phone that would like to speak or on the call?
Public portion.
Second.
We have a motion and second to close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Chair will recognize an adoption to this ordinance.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 1932-2020.
I'll s-
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can we
All
get a
those
roll
opposed?
call?
Oh,
Can we get a
I'm
roll
sorry.
call vote
Can I
on
get a
the
roll call
adoption?
vote? That's what I meant to say, Rita.
Okay. Mr. Kane?
I think this is something that's extremely necessary, and I vote yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Batali? Mayor Shanker?
Yes, this
All
is
yes and
affecting,
adopted.
this is affecting people's way of life, and that's not fair. So time to do something. We will move on to B, ordinance 1935-2020, an ordinance of the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, amending ordinance 1928-2020 to provide solid waste collection by the Atlantic County Utilities Authority for the Hamilton Township Board of Education. So just so it's clear, the Board of Education wasn't a part of our original contract because they thought, or we thought, they could get their own contract and it would be it would be a better deal for them. Turned out it wasn't. So now we're bringing them back onto our contract so it can help them with savings, which in turn helps us all with savings. This is a public hearing. I'd like to open the floor to the public. Anybody in the public like to speak? Anyone on the phone like to speak? Please unmute yourself.
Motion to close. Second.
We have a motion and a second to close public portion. Chair will recognize a motion to adopt.
Make that motion.
We have a motion to accept ordinance 1935-2020. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. Rita, could you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Batali?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Introduction ordinances, public hearing to be held December 7th, 2020. Ordinance 1936-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 60 of the Township Code, creating a position of Youth Services and Protection Coordinator. Okay,
Just to explain, this relates to C. And this is a group of ordinances all related together. And in 5C, we are looking to establish an ordinance requiring the background checks of people who are involved in youth activities and people who are utilizing our fields. This is something that has been recommended by law for at least 5 or 6 years now. Go ahead, Jake.
Many municipalities have this already do it. As you know, we have quite a few youth organizations. We need to get or the only youth organization down wherever now that actually does it by themselves is the Dow. I know the soccer does it through the soccer association, but our township doesn't require it. So like the administrator said, C basically is the ordinance that's going to establish background checks. So in order to do these background checks, we need to have create a position to have somebody manage it and manage the fields and so on. So it's very necessary.
And the other thing is the JIF has required this for some time now. And if we fail to pass this and carry through with this, what will happen is if we do have some incident exposure and we have liability, the JIF is going to basically look back at us and say, you failed to abide by what our requirements were in passing this and taking these steps to protect your children. And the liability, they may even reject coverage because we haven't done these things. And I have to, in establishing the position, what we have now are fields, and Brett, maybe you want to step up and you sent me something over the weekend. We had a major soccer event over the weekend. Carly Lloyd, I think her name is.
Yeah.
Olympian came into the community, did this large event with thousands of kids there. We had no controls over it. We didn't know who was there. For the fact is managing the fields has become so difficult. Besides, I mean, our people are maintaining the fields, cutting the grass, doing all these things, but we have no idea at this point who's utilizing our fields. We have for-profits right now coming in and utilizing the fields. And what we're looking to do, this position would manage the fields, making sure that we are in compliance. And when a for-profit comes in, we basically say, yes, you may utilize our fields, you comply with our regulations, but also, you're paying for lights. You're paying for, certain things that we have to supply. And right now, we are not doing that. We have, for lack of a better term, a free-for-all with the fields being used. Hockey is big events. Hockey courts. What are you? Courts? All the time. So, I mean, these are things that we're looking to establish proper protocols for the fields, along with the people who utilize the fields and the organizations that use the fields. So these are not things that we're looking to spend money on. This position would also take responsibility for the cove in the summertime, which would reduce some costs over there, absorb some costs over there. But again, that's managing it properly in coordination with Public Works and with the police department. So these are across the board. We're looking at regulations that are needed, and we need the mechanism through personnel to carry them out.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I certainly agree that this is part of what we've talked about with cleanup. I mean, these are something that we should have been doing and we need to do in the future. I will second Mr. Patali's motion and ask that we circulate this back through the Personnel Committee, plug in the rest of some of the budget numbers, and then bring it back a recommendation to Township Committee.
Does this require a credentialed individual?
The person that we would hire, not a credentialed, but it would be someone who obviously would have a background check. And we would look for someone who's got a real connection into the community, so we could coordinate these activities between the organizations and work with all of them across the board. But understanding with the fingerprinting itself is a substantial task for individuals have to go to, what they call it, say more for the police or the fingerprint people. You've got to bring the people in. Each person has to, we have to produce ID cards for all the volunteers on a regular basis. So these are all very intensive things that have to be done, that at this point, the staffing levels are just not there if we're going to carry through on this ordinance.
Arch, have we had any kind of a meeting with the heads of the different organizations and sports groups to discuss this at all? Or how do they feel about this?
They all know it's coming. Like we've seen Iverson has reached out for all the schools and explained that this is coming down the line. Like I said, there's a few youth groups that do some sort of background check. The majority do not. Which really leaves us in a situation that the liability would eventually fall back on the township because they're utilizing our field.
So if this is approved, the person who's going to be in this position of youth services and protection coordinator, do they have the final say over who can use the facilities and who can't, based upon the information that they obtain?
Volunteer wise,
Yes.
So if somebody does a background, or if we get a background check on somebody, and they, in the ordinance, it stipulates what would violate them and not allow them to be a volunteer. And then there is an appeal process, and they would come in front of myself, the administrator, and the rest of the public work. and we hear what they have to say, and then we can discuss it, and we would see where we go from there.
I agree. Kind of do agree with Carl on this. We need to discuss this maybe a little further, but I know that some of the sports groups, based upon the people who wanted to use the field, if they were even a for-profit company, they also produced a revenue stream to the groups in the way of the stand, selling items, fees sometimes to get in, and it was a fundraising possibility for the groups too. I would think that would want to be maybe discussed a little bit as part of it, but that's all. The overall idea is, I understand that. Yeah, I do. I think it needs a little more discussion myself. Thank
Yeah,
you.
for profit, especially at the soccer field, that's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yes.
I was involved with the soccer organization 20, 25 years ago. And every year they would bring in a company that would do what Carly Lloyd's company did this past weekend. So,
But why should the taxpayer absorb that? Why should the taxpayer absorb that cost? If you
what
have a
cost? The
for-profit
grass?
agency. What's it?
Farming is a separate issue. They came in with a clinic, whatever happened there.
Okay, well, it was part of the conversation, chief, wasn't it? It was part of the conversation here. I'm just making a point that Carly Lloyd's thing was no different than any other group that they've brought in every year for the last 20 some years. It's to train the kids. And yeah, they make a couple bucks on the side. So look, I agree with John and want to move this motion forward. You heard the motion to table?
Motion to table, and it's been seconded.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Ordinance 1937, 2020, an ordinance amending an ordinance 1630, 2008, Exhibit A, to establish a salary maximum for the position of Youth Services Protection Coordinator. So would you like to do the pleasure? Because without one, you can't have the other. All right.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to table ordinance 1937, 2020. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay.
What we're planning, what do we think we're gonna learn? Postponing this. And what do we need to know in order to feel comfortable about addressing it?
I have a lot of questions on how this is being done. So I believe it needs more discussion before we bring it to the public.
And I think Mr. Kurtz brought up a good point. And again, my goal would be, again, to have this circulate back to the personnel committee and see, I see the possibility of savings. I see the possibility of maybe additional revenue streams to offset the cost. I'd like to have that all discussed and then again, bring it back out in front of committee.
This is not new to the athletic association. We've discussed this with them before.
Hiring someone to handle it?
No, somebody, checking out the employees,
Well,
Okay.
checking out the volunteers.
I think we all agree that that's something that needs to be done. I mean, that is, but we have to figure out a way not to burden the taxpayers further in doing so. And if that can be done, I think that that's something worth looking at.
Are there any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. C, ordinance 1938, 2020, an ordinance establishing a criminal background checks for employees and volunteers involved with the township sponsored or township supported youth programs, excuse me. Committee?
That narrows things down a little bit more to that specific thing, but I'd still like to table that. I think this all works together.
Okay.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Awards, bids, contracts, change orders, resolution authorizing option 1-year extension on the award of bid 2019-13 heating and ventilation and air conditioning services and maintenance contract, HVAC contract to Peterson Service Company not to exceed $31,523. Committee,
We need heat and air, so I'll move it.
I'll second it.
we have a motion and a second. We need a roll call vote for this, Rita?
I would say no, but I think Bob will disagree with me.
Please give me a roll call vote,
Money.
please, because I need to abstain from this.
Okay, very good. Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Abstention.
4 yes, 1 abstention.
Thank
Motion
you.
carried.
B, resolution authorizing a purchase of a VMware Carbon Black antivirus from SHI under state contract not to exceed $21,439.20. Okay. I take it this is computers?
Yes,
Mhm.
Is this a result of competitive bid?
this is state contract.
This has nothing to do with Corona. Committee,
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
the motion and a second. Rita, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
C, resolution authorizing the purchase of swipe card access from Intellicom for Public Works Administrative Building and Garage not to exceed $30,025.
I don't think there's anything.
Was this a budgeted item?
Yes,
I'll move C.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
It was a budgeted item. I'll say yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes, it was budgeted, so
Mhm.
yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, D, resolution authorizing year 2 option of bid 2018-10 tree and stump removal and tree trimming services contract to Rich Tree Service Incorporated, not to exceed $20,000.
I'll make that motion to award that.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Rita, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. 6E, resolution authorizing purchase of signboard from SPA Safety Solutions not to exceed, we try English, not to exceed $24,998.
this is actually related to a COVID expense in
Mhm.
the sense that we've got to upgrade our boards. Our boards have kind of aged out. And this one allows us a little bit more technology and a little bit more upgrading so we can get information out. And our boards have been very, very helpful in getting information out during
Yes.
COVID.
I agree.
This is an electronic board.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to award this item.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments?
I just think anytime we can communicate with our residents, it's a good thing. So,
Very good. Thank you. Rita, can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Kane?
yes.
Mr. Gishard? Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
F, resolution to amend resolution 2020-0245, a resolution to retain the legal services of William G. Blaney Esquire of Blaney Caravan PC as special counsel labor attorney to include and increase the amount of $25,000 total contract, the amount of $40,000 total contract.
Mr. Mayor, this is an increase in this contract due to two things. The MISPA research and background and trying to do title searches and doing, working with administration and reviewing that whole problem out there, drafting of ordinances that have been done, and also they're handling police disciplinary appeals through PERC and Superior Court.
Okay.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second for 6F. Rita, why don't you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
Oh, yes, and carried.
Okay. Consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve items 7A through I, including item L, and hold for discussion items J, K, and M.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. 7J, resolution designated blocks 1317. Excuse me. Okay, this 1317 lots 13.1, 1302, 15, 16, 1701, 1702, 1703, 18, block 1323, lots 2 and 3. So this is, I lost it. Right in front of me and I lost it. Favors. This is the one that is not the developer that's come to us. So this is just a piece of property. Could you elaborate on this a little bit, please?
Yes, sir. In evaluating areas and interests we've had from developers and people looking to purchase a property along Route 40, there's a large piece bordering on the east side of the community on Route 40, formerly known as the Sabres site. And what this does, this opens it up for the redevelopment process and makes it more attractive for the selling of the property and bringing more ratables into the community.
Okay, so this particular property has no developer attached to this.
That's correct,
You're talking
sir.
to me about the Zabers property, which is where I believe there's a developer attached.
No, that's the Woods Edge is the one where there's a developer at Cologne and Route 40 on that triangle. piece
Oh,
that-
that's, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this one, we're doing, I'm a little
Yeah.
confused. We're doing this one because we feel it's going to attract someone or,
It makes it much more viable for development if you have it predetermined as a redevelopment area. So when property goes to, if someone is interested in it, we can then work with them on different issues to help them maximize for the highest and best use of the property.
On the Zabers side, didn't we have an interested party?
We've had some interested parties back and forth, but
Okay.
there was some issues where they were shopping some other areas too.
Okay.
So we want to make this competitive.
All right.
Address at the planning board meeting, Charlie?
Yes, it was. And, on this particular site, there's, I want to talk about the next one, but this particular site obviously has been sitting vacant and it passed the criteria. It's been sitting vacant with no private capital injected into it for in
Correct.
excess of 10 plus years. We all know it as 20 years. So, it does help the situation now that, if we can't bring to fruition the individual that first looked at it, hopefully we'll be able to bring someone else to the table now that we've done this.
The attorney's on the call. She just texted me. If she can we try to identify if the committee has any questions? But also,
That's the attorney they're talking
the
about.
attorney, Miss Givens is on the phone too, but she's not.
Yeah. Is that her?
Hi. Can you hear me? This is Emily Givens.
Yeah, that's her. Yep. If the committee has any questions, she's the redevelopment attorney from Maley's office that can assist us with any questions you have about the development of the property.
so my question is, we've done this with the racetrack. Okay,
Right.
this is what we did it in cooperation with the racetrack. And there's also a escrow account set up with the racetrack to capture back our costs that we put in.
Right.
So if there's no communication with the people that own this property, we're spending money right now. And how are we going to recoup this money?
Well,
Is this
So-
more?
In order for us to do anything further, we would have to adopt a redevelopment plan. And when Arch and I went over this with committee a few months ago, before this process started to us going to the planning board and having the study prepared, we discussed that we wanted to have the property set up for development and for potential development so that we could, as Arch was just explaining, that we want to make it more competitive. Egg Harbor Township has a lot of development going on. This will put us in position to be competitive with those developments and will allow the township to entice developers and potential developers to come and have a conversation with you that they might not otherwise have. The current zoning there isn't spectacular for some of the projects that they might want to do, and therefore they'd have to come to the zoning board for a use variance. Well, use variances can create lots of issues for developers in that they are maybe subject to litigation and length and delays and additional costs that if there was a redevelopment plan that made their potential use a by right use, and they would still have to come to the planning board to have their site plan reviewed, but would be able to have a zone for their particular property. And in addition, also have the potential for tax abatement. So we discussed this, as I said, a few months back, and it made sense rather than letting this property sit fallow to just do this study and put us in position to mark it as a redevelopment area. And then when the interest comes in, we would then work with a conditional redeveloper who would post an escrow, and we would work through the redevelopment plan process. So at this point, the investment into this determination of needs study was so that we'd be in a competitive position.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
I seem to recall that we saw a plan for this prior to, and that's why we undertook this process.
Exactly. That's why that's my confusion with this. There was a developer.
No, the developer proposal that we went over the evening that I was there, and Arch went through a number of different potential projects with you, was the Woods Edge development. And that was a residential development. And we talked about there's a liquor store and different access. And while we weren't all on board with that exact proposal, the idea of making that overall development area, a redevelopment area, was something that committee was interested in. And so that was the one that had the development proposal.
I thought we
I gotta
saw
be honest
two.
with you. There was four things that came before us that night.
Right. So we had the Legion building, and we had the ice cream shop. We had this Woods Edge development, and then the vacant parcels on the Black Horse Pike that Arch had explained to you. There was no interest right now, but this was intended to generate that interest.
Okay. It's not how I remember it, but
I'm on there.
that's neither here nor there at this point.
Lisa, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to make sure you could hear me. We went from phone to, I went off the computer onto the phone. I've been at the whole meeting, but I don't think you guys could hear me at first.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Very well.
All right, I'm good.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, I guess with all due respect, I mean, I do recall that we saw something for that. I do think that, the property has been sitting vacant for quite some time, and having a neighboring township that is competing for the same business that we are, I believe that we should move forward with it, and hopefully it will now attract an interested party.
Okay.
I feel the same way for the purposes of competing,
Mm-hmm. All right.
No, you don't have to turn it up.
Do we, did you make a motion? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
there's a motion in a second.
It's a motion and a second on 7J. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, 7K, designating block 1133, lots 1 and 2, block 1134, lots 1301, 1301, 302, 303, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 within the Township of Hamilton. This is Woods Edge, which is on Route 40. The proposed site?
Correct.
Okay. So this is one that we did talk about. I'm positive on this one.
Yes, and this one, there is an escrow posted with the potential redeveloper. And once we have this designation completed, we'll be meeting again with committee to begin development of a redevelopment plan to see exactly what it is that committee would like to see there.
So the folks who approached us about this property have nothing to do with this. Is that what you're telling me?
They have posted an escrow with regard to the potential project, but they did not participate in drafting the study and establishing the criteria for designation as a redevelopment area. They will participate in development of the redevelopment plan,
Okay.
but that's mainly, that's committees, it's a give and take. It's a negotiation back and forth to see what their project needs and what the township needs are.
Okay. I'm aware. I wanted to make sure that they are going to be part of this once we move forward.
Yes, they will be.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else have any questions? We have a motion or second or? Thank you.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. 7M, resolution granting permission to Glass Entertainment Group LLC, MN Show LLC to film in about Mays Landing for November 16th to the 20th. So from what I could read, in the few minutes we had to look at this, they are filming a show.
This is a company that is HLN, who's actually owned by CNN. If you've ever seen their network at night, for lack of a better term, it's like a murder network.
Yeah.
And they have like forensic files on it, and different types of shows like that. And they want to film a episode about an issues in Mays Landing.
So this, yeah, it says it follows a true crimes investigation across the United States. Any comments? First of all, this is, excuse me, Carl. Is this a resolution? Yes. So we have a resolution in front of us, and they're requesting to film at Oak Crest High School, which is outside of our jurisdiction. They also request to film at Mays Landing Marina, which is outside of our jurisdiction since it's a privately owned company. So I don't know.
They've been advised that anything on private property, we have no control over. And the only thing we can do is advise that they can film from public areas.
Do we have any control over any of this after the fact? I mean,
I don't want us to be in a bad,
That-
bad light.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering how it could be a good light.
They're coming at us. They want to film next week. So we can't even really ask them questions and then come back to have a meeting and discuss it.
I mean,
You can table it, we can have them come in and do a presentation, see if they can delay their production.
I just really think that we need to know a little more about this. I mean, I really have concerns about this town that we all care about so much being possibly cast in a negative light if we don't have the questions answered. I mean, I have real concern about that.
I agree. We had an application similar to this a year or so ago with a movie company, and it was the same questions came up, and we tabled it, and they ended up going somewhere else because they didn't want to come and talk to us about the plans they actually had. So I think that's
I would say,
But John, that was a little bit different, John, because we were insisting upon them paying for the cost of our police and some sort of indemnification. And they kind of balked at that.
yes, they did. I remember that.
So we received this today at 10 o'clock.
I am not comfortable moving forward without more information on this.
Okay.
Table this and we request more information.
We have a motion on the floor to table. We have a second to some. All right, second. So we have a motion and second. Is there any more questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, personnel, the resolution appointing Maida Stewart as a full-time communications officer for the police department at $42,086.07 annually, effective date November 10th, 2020.
This is no increase in headcount, correct? I'll move.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard? Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
Yes, and carried.
B, appointment of Lindsay Pritchka as a part-time communications officer at the rate of $16.56 per hour, effective date to be determined.
I just have the same question. I remember you mentioned that prior meetings, but I just want to make sure it was for the record. Yeah, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, you know what, let's do a roll call, Rita.
Mr. Kane?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
All yes, and
C, resolution appointing Brett Knoll as temporary acting qualified purchasing agent effective November 9th until new chief financial officer / QPA is appointed.
So moved.
Motion and a second. We don't need a roll call for this.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do, because he's being an active qualified purchasing agent.
Okay.
He's got to be authorized by roll call vote.
Okay, thank you.
It is
Rita?
no increase in headcount, but one additional hat for Mr. Knoll over there. Yes.
Mr. Gishard? Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
Carried.
Resolution appointing acting chief financial officer effective November 9th.
We're looking to appoint temporarily Don Don Stolenweck, who is the Chief Financial Officer in Mullica Township, and who would assist us on a part-time basis, probably 10 to 15 hours a week, at $65 an hour through the end of the year.
Is that going rate?
Yeah, well, actually, if you go to one of the private LLCs, or you're one of the private consulting, you're probably paying $1 and a quarter.
So how many hours a week are we looking to?
10 to 15.
And Archie's, he's got the appropriate certificates?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll move 8D.
we have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Rita, could you give us a roll call vote just to round this off?
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Gishard,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Mayor Shanker.
Yes.
All yes and carried.
9, approvals. A, minutes, regular meeting minutes of October 19th, 2020.
So moved.
A motion, we have a second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. B, bills, bill list total $5,474,157.63. We have a motion, a second. Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, Rita, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker.
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, we move on to number 10, reports. Mr. Administrator, you have anything?
Everything I'll address in executive.
Thank you. Mr. Solicitor.
I have nothing to report, just to say thank you for allowing me to appear virtually and to tell you what a great job Lisa and Chris did to assist me because I'm a computer idiot. Chris showed up at my house during the meeting.
Very good, very good. I hope you feel good.
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Engineer.
There are just 3 minor items I want to talk about. They plan to be meeting next Monday at 2 o'clock. We're expecting a concept design from WSP, the design engineer. Continental Bridge is continuing to report as scheduled. And the third item is Atlantic Avenue Road Reconstruction Project is out to bid. We're going to bid on the 24th of November. We've had quite some contractors pick up plans, and this is the reconstruction of Atlantic Avenue Justice Complex. We just passed.
Long time coming.
Yes. That's all I have, man. Thank you.
Just one question that I have on the Cotton Mill Bridge. Is there any milestones that we're looking to hit? You know, are we, you say they're on schedule, but I know that there's milestones along the course of any project like this.
There is. The in-water work is a critical milestone.
Correct.
They are ahead of schedule.
Good. Good.
They are not concerned about having to do any work in the water from that restriction period.
Right. So,
If the weather remains good, they're expecting to finish the concrete precast in the month of December. That's a critical point. And I don't want to say who they can finish ahead of schedule, but they are very pleased with the project. Project's going well within the project.
okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I have one thing I did overlook. Questions arose about, we have some straggler trash cans, or trash toters from Waste Management. We are picking them up, we are billing them back for our services when we deliver, and making sure that we, our time is reimbursed.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Township Committee. Carl?
At our green event, I think that went very well. I dropped some stuff off myself. Pretty impressive. Went very smooth. Great job with Public Works. All we've got to do a great job with that thing. Also, Public Works, a lot of work. Yeah, with all the trees and shrubs that were, that was our responsibility. Their responsibility. Yeah, they get their side on it. I didn't look real good over there. Ours is, looks pretty good. It changes the whole view of that whole area over there at the lake. It's very, very nice. Also saw the other night, I saw the Christmas lights just starting to go up in town. And that gets me excited for that time of year. Really looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Saturday after Thanksgiving and everybody being down there. Hopefully we can still have that event with the social distancing and everything that's going on. And of course we have Veterans Day coming up Wednesday, correct? Hope to see everybody down there for that also. I guess that's set up once again, social distancing, wear your mask, be safe. And that's all I have to say. Great, man, miss you, love you. See you soon.
Thank you, Carl. John?
Yeah, I just want to touch on Carl's comment on Veterans Day program. It's really the first time now with this COVID thing that people are going to get out and attend the Veterans Day program. So I hope everybody takes advantage of that and maintains the safety distances like Carl said. But it's something I really think we all need to get together and do, especially for the Veterans program. Great program, and we should get out and enjoy it. Now, the other thing is, I was really pleased to see the ordinance for the short-term rental and residential properties. I've seen a couple instances in town, one right on Pennington Avenue where a property sold very recently and was indicated by people that they were renting space in that building from the new owners, but the owners lived there also. So I don't know how that falls into things, but that's probably the intent that we passed this to make sure things like that were caught. I'm hoping we can stay on top of that and maybe head off a couple of these problems in town that we could have. Other than that, everybody be safe. Holidays coming up. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and thank you.
Hey, Mayor, can I?
Yes.
One more thing.
Sure.
Mr. Fire, Chief, I believe they had a call.
Yes, they did.
How everything, I heard everything went very smooth. I'd rather hear it from you.
Yeah, so, Richland was there very quickly. They were coming back from another call, so they were already out and about. They got there basically when dispatch hung up the phone. They were there, so it was very quick. It was a false alarm, nothing major, but they've been good partners. They're on top of things.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Charlie?
I noticed two solutions, the two ordinance redevelopment plan. There was a lot of discussion, if you recall, we sent back to the planning board to look at the other side of 322 across from Zaber's property. And that I didn't notice that on here, but that was really telltale from a planning perspective when you got to look at that property from a bird's eye view and how many smaller lots that's chopped up into. And sometimes even the most well-intentioned plans have unintended consequences. And the requirement on the master plan to run volunteer way through that property to Delilah Road, if you look at the configuration of that property, it narrows at one point where it would almost make that impossible to do. So it could be one of the underlying reasons why that property has been shied away from for development. So it was a worthwhile undertaking, and it really reasons why, again, it may not have been, there hasn't been interest over there. So I'd like to see, hopefully we're going to move forward that and have that probably on the next meeting. Okay.
Was there anything discussed about, fixing that problem?
Well, I mean, with the redevelopment ordinance now, it gives the flexibility to the planning board if someone does come in with a plan to alter that and maybe not require that As you know, when AutoZone went in, the planning board gave AutoZone some relief from having to start that volunteer way with the agreement that if it is connected in the future, that they would do their fair share. So it now gives that flexibility to someone with a plan to not have that requirement. There still may be a way to have egress and ingress and egress on the property and keep that traffic in there off of the pike.
Right.
But it may not be the solution of connecting Volunteer Way all the way through. So,
Sounds like doing that, just eliminating some of the property that's on the Black Horse Pike.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And is there any movement on the right-hand turn lane at 40 and 50? I know that I've seen some emails going back and forth. Do you know if we're going to get this approved or not? Oh, was it? Okay. So when do you think we'll see the signage go up for that?
The yield sign. Okay. The placement of the right-hand turn, we'll remove that right-hand turn on red and allow cars to go through that.
When do you think we'll see that, Steve?
I will find out from Kevin, get an email out to everybody. It was about 2 weeks ago, it was approved.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't see anything on that. So I'll just share everybody's comments with Veterans Day. If you have the time, thank a veteran. I mean, they're the reason why we enjoy the freedoms we do in this country. And I want to thank my wife. It's her birthday. I'm here, but putting up with me, I appreciate it, and happy birthday.
She is a good woman. Rodney?
Yes, I'd like to remind everybody once again about the Veterans Day. The VAB, Veterans Advisory Board, has put this thing together. And it's something that couldn't, you have to do with the virus and whatnot. But they want to do it, so it's being done. Hopefully we'll see a decent number of people out there. Also, I don't know how many people are following this arena for the COVID-19. But it looks like the numbers are still going up. Fortunately, the Hamilton Township didn't look bad. We're probably one of the most rural areas in Atlantic County. Maybe that's why, but we ought to keep doing what we're doing. Those numbers down.
Anything else, Rodney?
Something to think about though. If the nation ever gets to the point where we start doing some tracing, it makes sense that the tracing be conducted at the lowest level rather than the federal government or the state. The local municipalities seem to be the best tracers. There might be something to think about.
All right. Thank you, Rodney. I'd also like to echo the thanks to the Veterans Advisory Board for putting on this Veterans Day event. It's a great thing. I unfortunately can't be there. I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Charles Kane for stepping in my absence, and I'm sure he'll do a great job. That'll probably bring out more people since you're going to be there. The other thing I'd like to comment on real briefly is the short-term rentals. And the young lady that was on the call, you know, we were aware of it. Again, Deputy Mayor brought this to our attention. And we cannot have this, not in this town. This is not a short town. This is not short-term rental town. This is a residential town, and our neighbors and friends shouldn't have to deal with this. So I'm hoping that since this ordinance passed, that problem will be taken care of tomorrow. The one problem we know of. Thank you, Chief. Also, I'd like to, like Rodney said, the numbers in COVID-19 are climbing. Listen, we all do what we do, but I just wish that you would all be safe. Take care of yourselves. Hopefully with the news we heard today about Pfizer on the third go round of testing, a 90% rate, sounds like it's a good thing, but we won't know for a while yet. So in the meantime, it's not over. Keep doing what you're doing, wearing the mask, staying socially distanced, and we can all get through this. And last but not least, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoy your time with your family as best you can. I want to open the meeting up to the public for public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to speak? Percy.
Mayor and council, I apologize for being late. I tried to get on. I could not get on the website at all, and I don't profess to be computer illiterate, but
Right.
there's a new website and there's no link that you can just click on and get into the website. And what scares me when I come into the meeting and the chief of police points something at my head and I can't figure it out. It was a thermometer. That was okay. So, I apologize, but there are a couple of questions that people asked me that if I knew the answers. I said, I don't know, but I will come to the governing body and ask the questions. And it has to do with the agenda. And you may have already chewed the cabbage already, but I will ask the questions that were asked of me. And it relates to BB, the lease agreement for MISPA Volunteer Fire Company.
Mm-hmm.
The question revolves around the legal organization of the fire company and the purpose for which was organized, and provide fire protection for a section of the community. Supposing there are, for example, 20 members of this organization, and 3 members decide to do something which is not proper, whatever it might be. Does the rest of the organization have to suffer for that? And can't that organization function beyond what those 3 members are responsible for doing what they weren't supposed to do? Again, that's the question is they can't function. They're not allowed to function at this time because of what someone else did. The other question was, as it relates to the assets that rental is providing. They have a space in the barn, and we put our township assets in that space.
Correct.
Have those assets been secured? Have those assets been taken out of the barn and put somewhere else? And
Yes.
Where is that somewhere else?
We're using the shed right now, the salt shed at the Public Works garage.
Yeah, it's the Public Works building.
There you
The
are.
new shed that we bought for salt now has fire equipment in it.
Okay.
Okay. It's a temporary thing.
Okay, just as long as they're out of the elements, because that's, $500,000 piece of equipment.
Oh, no. We're aware.
And that answers that question.
Did you want me to address the first question
Sure.
about the why we did what we did tonight?
Well, I don't know. Well, yeah, right.
We did go, Arch, you explained it so eloquently. Could you do it again real quick?
I'll try. The issue, first of all, we did look for alternative people to possibly continue operations of that company.
Mm-hmm.
When we began our investigation and started looking at it, the organization itself as a 501c3, we at this point can't prove that it exists. If the organization doesn't exist legally as an entity, how do we continue to support it with insurance and tax dollars money if they're not doing the fundamental things they need to do to establish themselves as that organization?
So basically what we did tonight was to protect the township legally as we work our way through this investigation. So as we find things out, there's some things we're going to have to do to correct certain situations as we move forward. So no determination or decisions have been made. This is just like the administrator just stated. kind of a legal type of thing, so we needed to do so, and I believe our solicitor advised us to do so.
They are organized as a 501c3 corporation?
All of them are.
Okay.
That's a requirement.
They would have to, I know they'd have to be incorporated, but not necessarily as a 501c3, because that's a very high category in tax deferral. So that has nothing to do with the operations of the facility. It's a strange configuration. The other question that popped up was a new title that's being created, Youth Services and Protection Coordinator. Again, last meeting, I brought up the situation we called the smart growth meetings that we had 10 years or so ago. Nothing like this concept ever popped up in that question was what are the problems that have created this for the creation of this position, and how will they be solved? And finally, the reason for the smart growth deliberation was to limit the cost of government beyond the ability of the municipality to pay for them. What with tax abatements being offered and tax deals being granted, how does this position fit into that scheme of things of smart growth, where you're not adding positions and costing the taxpayers of the government more money? And are any positions being eliminated in order to provide for that position?
So the short answer is this was tabled. It was not passed.
Short answer.
It was
Okay.
tabled.
That's good.
All right. So we need to look into this a little more before we do anything of this nature.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Again, it was a question I didn't.
No, that's fine.
And
Yeah.
again, I apologize for being late.
It's quite all right.
Computer technology, my own personal services.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anybody on the phone that would like to speak in public hearing, or excuse me?
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
State your name and your address, please.
My name is Kendra Newman and I am on, where am I at? Sewell Avenue in Mispa, New Jersey. And I
Okay.
have a question about the firehouse as well. I heard that you're going to terminate the lease on the 31st of December. Who is the lease with?
Pardon me?
Who owns the building that you're leasing?
That's what we're trying to find out.
Okay, so you must know who that is if you already have a lease with that. That's number one. Number two, if they can prove incorporation, where will they go if you've already terminated the lease? When we want to get our fire trucks and things back, if we can prove that lease, where will you put them if you don't have the lease there?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
If you terminate the lease December 31st.
Correct.
And we are able to prove, if they find the paperwork and they're able to prove that they are incorporated or a 501c, whichever one you want.
Okay.
January 1st. How will we have any place to put the fire trucks? Because we won't have a house anymore.
We can always sign a new lease. That's an option. Right now,
Mr. Mayor, the lease itself terminates by its own term. And if you didn't do what you're doing, it would automatically renew as it has for many years. And the township would have the exposure of liability for the building without any utility for it. But as you point out, you know, if they can prove some legal incorporation, and I'm not handling this, Labor Council is,
correct.
That would be step one. And then there's always room to renegotiate if you're happy with that step. But right now, based on the attorney for the township, your Labor Council, and I support it 100%, it had to be terminated for expressly liability reasons, in my opinion.
Okay, and then I have another question. the fire company from Richland responded to the center. How long did it take them to get here?
Short period of time, and I can't tell you exactly, but it was within a minute, 2 minutes maybe.
A minute or 2 minutes?
That is correct. It was a very short time.
I doubt that. It takes longer to get from Richland to here.
It took 12 minutes.
I understand it took 12 minutes. And from what my research is saying that you should have, the goal is 9 minutes and 20 seconds for any fire. And I know it wasn't 2 minutes because it takes you 2 minutes to walk out the door.
On another call, they were coming back.
Well, I would like to get the exact time, the response time for that. And so I'm just asking questions so that we know how to move forward as a community.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
I have a question.
Hold on just a second. Ma'am, do you have any other questions?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My name's Nick Santana. I'm at Indiana Ave in Mispa. So what's the township's ultimate plan for the fire department? I mean, it's easy to say, let's close it, but you know, we are in that corner of the township where it's going to take 15 plus minutes for someone in the township to come out to us.
That's part of our research that we're doing now. The chief has done a very good job in coordinating with Mays Landing, Weymouth, and Richland, looking at the area, so the response times are well within, I think guidelines will be considering volunteer fire departments. Also, the tankers that the Richland has and that Mays Landing are in initial response. And looking at the distances and population and density, at this point, you know, it's still being to make sure that we can comply.
Ultimately, do you plan on having a station or no?
Excuse me? I didn't understand what you said.
Are we going to have a station or not?
Do you plan on continuing to have a station in the Mispa section of the township?
I think the administrator just explained that we are studying this right now. We're looking, there's an ongoing investigation.
I feel as though if this were Laureldale, things would have been done a little bit different. That you're almost turning your back on the citizens of Mispa, that you're not looking out for our immediate interests, you know, to protect our property as other parts of the township. Like you said, by using, you know, the numbers, the density, and you know that, yeah, we don't have density, we don't have or our properties may not bring in as much tax dollars as other parts, but we still deserve the same amount of protection.
Sir, with all due respect, that has nothing to do with it. We have a problem at a firehouse and we're trying to deal with it. It wasn't a small problem. So in the meantime, while we work our way through this, we have asked Richland to come in and support, and they've done a fantastic job for us so far. This is not something that comes easily, and I really am a little offended that you make it seem that way.
Okay, so then why wasn't there more direct supervision over this fire department if the township's looking to protect themselves now? But why weren't you looking out to protect themselves earlier, so that this wasn't just, the fire department wasn't just running free?
I'm not sure I can comment on that right now.
Exactly.
You can't, you cannot, Mr. Mayor.
Ongoing investigation, so I don't know what to tell you with that one. You have anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. Carl, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I talked with Mays Landing's chief somewhat frequently, and almost every time the first question I ask is what's going on, and he calls out at MISPA.
Carl, we cannot hear you.
I talk with the chief of Mays Landing with Lou quite often. And the first thing that I ask is what's going on with MISPA, and he calls out there. Mays Landing is they're stepping up. They know what has to be done. They take everything serious. They take everything very seriously. And this is something that everybody down there has said, they're going to follow through with, and they're going to step up and take care of MISPA, and also Richland out there. And like the chief said, you guys just had your first call out there in MISPA, and Richland was already out on a call, so they got there very quickly. And
12 minutes. 12 minutes.
Okay.
Ma'am, until you're recognized, please don't speak. Thank you.
I'm going by what I was told, and I'll follow through, and I'm going to get with our chief, and I'm going to ask him to check into it, and let's see what the times were. I mean, we could find that out, but I understand what you guys are saying. You want your fire station back, and we're doing the best that we can to get that taken care of. And there's a lot of things that we can't do because there's an investigation going on, and you can't just go out and open up a fire station. You have to have people that are qualified to be the chief, to be the assistant chief, to have the proper captains. These are all things that it's law. The state says we have to have these things, and we got to make sure they're all in place. And there's nothing more that we want than to have you guys. If that means we put a station back out there and open it back up, that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
We're working our way to it, and I just want you guys to understand that I was a firefighter with Mays Landing for a long time, and everybody down there is going to do what they have to do to keep you guys safe. So, but like I said, I'll follow through with this. I'll get with our chief, and we'll take a look at some things. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you,
I have
Carl.
a small comment here.
Go ahead, John.
Mr. Percy had stated that, why would members that weren't involved in this process have been good members of the company have to suffer for those who made an error? I would just want to say, Mr. Administrator, do you know of anyone that has come forward in the fire group that has offered a solution or an idea of how we could get the firehouse back in operation? I understand there's an ongoing investigation, but it seems to me that the people that are not involved in this would have enough drive and respect for their company to come out and say, we have an idea of what could happen, run it by the township. I don't know. Nothing has happened like that.
Nothing has happened with people coming forward. People we've spoken with actually have disclosed that there were numerous problems within the organization, and that there were concerns about the financial processes there, along with the organization, the board of directors that should have existed. So if someone from the community wants to attempt to restructure or re-identify the fire company and work, I mean, we're here open, and we'll consider any options. But the other side of the coin is we can't be giving tax dollars out without controls, and we found that this place was not being controlled. And as taking over as an administrator and having a background and looking at these things, this is something that needed to be addressed, and we're controlling the dollars.
Thank you.
Just one quick question to the lady's comment. A volunteer fire department, Carl, I know you volunteered for many years. Are they required to keep stats on response time?
Our dispatch would have would have the information on times.
But I mean, as part of what their bylaws are or anything, do they keep stats on that? I mean,
I don't think they do it. NIFRS, NIFRS would have it.
If you don't mind, I did inquire about the response time because I knew that would be a question that would come up during the meeting. And the dispatcher advised me that they were there so quickly that by the time they dispatched or toned them out, they were already arriving. That's why I say it's like 1 to 2 minutes. They couldn't even give me a time on when they responded or got there because it was so quick. They said it was unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate that. And Chief, I know you've done a lot of work on this between you and Arch to make sure that, and again, to the other caller, we're up here representing every corner of this town. I don't care how much taxes any portion of the town pays. We're here representing every corner of the town. And I'm happy that the first incident we actually did have, even though it was a false alarm, that the response time was so quick. But are there stats available? Do we know what MISPA's response time was prior to this compared to what we're seeing now? And I guess that's the question I'd like to know if we could get answered.
We'd have to pull the data.
It's not, it's so in
And we'd have
fire
NIFRS from
company's
the state-
bylaws,
the
they don't
NIFRS
keep
from the
that
state may
records
have
of
it,
that.
right?
Yeah, I don't have all the statistics with me, but I do know a lot of the times Richland was there prior to MISBA because they're right next to them. They're a neighboring town. So they did work closely with MISBA. And a lot of the times, like I said, they were there prior to MISBA getting out.
Okay. All this type of information is going to be brought before us before we make any kind of decisions. I mean, we're going to make the decision that makes sense for the entire community with, keep in mind, the people in MISPA. I mean, this is not something we take lightly. We have a problem. We're trying to make the decision with all the information and not just some of it and say, okay, everything's good. Let's just go back to where we were. The other fire companies are going to have things that they're going to have to do. Though there's nothing that happened at the other companies, we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we're all moving forward in the right direction. So, is there anybody else in the public like to speak? Yes, sir.
Tyrone Russell from MISPA. I was asked a question about the alarm for the center, that the center's supposed to be getting shut down. These was questions that was presented to me. And I don't know, I was out of town that weekend.
The center across from the fire?
Yeah, Alfred R. Lundy Community Center is supposed to be getting shut down because of the fire alarm.
I saw something about that. The fire alarm's not operating properly.
It's outdated.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, we had a company come in and supposed to brought it up to date. But to come down to the township and try to get the code for the alarm, nobody seems to have the code for the alarm
For that building?
for that building.
It's not our building. I don't know why we would have it.
Well, the township should have had the code for it from the beginning. But when we took it over, because every day we got going in, you gotta, it's not sending the alarm out, but it's on. You
Right.
gotta hit buttons to
Right.
turn it off. But yes, the system is outdated, so it's got to be brought up to code to work properly. And that question was brought to me about supposed to be shutting down the center.
I don't know. I've not heard that. I know that you had an issue with the alarm. I did hear that.
Yeah, that's what I heard. The alarm went off. It was, taken care of, and it went off.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they were cooking something in the kitchen, and no, they did the floors. That's what it was, and the chemical from the floors
Okay.
went to the ceiling, and it set it off.
Okay.
So it wasn't no cooking. It was the floors that were being done.
All right. Chief, is there anybody we could send out there to take a look at that and see what we can do? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I had heard about it, but not to that extent. So let's see what we can do. Anybody else from the public like to speak? I'll accept a motion to close. Anybody on the call like to speak? If you want to, please unmute yourself. Hearing no one.
Motion to close public portion.
Second.
A motion to close public portion in a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. We will adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Rita?
Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session. Discuss the following matters which are exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. 1, property acquisition. 2, personnel. CFO. Be it further resolved that the governing body may reconvene. I don't know if we're reconvening or not. May reconvene in public session. Arch?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think there's anything. to
All right,
report.
we will not reconvene in public session to confirm the results of the executive session. Be it further resolved that the results of said executive session shall be made known as soon as the basis for confidentiality is no longer confidential.
Okay.